Hello everyone, welcome back to the channel. I received a comment a couple of videos ago when I was talking about rugby and kind of gym lifts. I think it was a video about the bench press, and I received a comment basically talking about whether I can explain and dive in a bit further in terms of rugby strength and kind of the standards associated with it. And I thought this was a very interesting topic, so I thought why not make a video about that today. My name's Hassan if you're new to the channel, guys, and this is the first time seeing on my screen. I make videos about rugby and how rugby players can improve their skill set and their knowledge to hopefully allow them to play at a high level. And today's video is going to be about rugby strength standards for beginner players. Now, I'm going to be going through and explaining why obviously gym work is quite important for young and developing players, and I'm also going to be talking about why certain lifts are set at a certain standard for you guys who are quite new to the game. So with that being said, let's get straight into this video, and I hope you find it useful. So the first thing let's talk about in terms of why gym work is important for you guys who are relatively new to the game. Now, as we know, rugby is a contact sport and it requires some level of physical strength and physical fitness and ability. And I think it's really important that especially to the players who are relatively young, I'm talking like maybe 16 and older, it's really important to build a nice strong core foundation within your gym movements to hopefully allow you to build a good platform to hopefully level up and increase as you get older, as you put on more muscle and as you get heavier in terms of body weight. So I'm basically going to be going through a bunch of these core movements that are associated with rugby and are very useful for players all the way from the grassroots level all the way up into the professional game. And I'm going to be just talking about each movement, how it's beneficial, and kind of the standard that is set with that movement for beginner players. So before I get into it, I just want to talk about the kind of standards and the movements. So I'm going to put a visual up on the screen now. I want to give a credit to the YouTube channel Rugby Strength, as this is a visual that is from their channel and I've just analysed it and I thought it'd be good to break it down on my own channel, so shout out to them. And as you can see on this visual, we have the back squat, the front squat, the deadlift, pull-ups, bench press and shoulder press. And we can see that there are some multipliers on the labeled to each lift, and I'm just going to say why we use these multipliers. Now, these multipliers are important because they allow us to stay relative in terms of our strength, and it's a really good way of making sure it's consistent across all position groups, because a tight head prop is going to be able to lift a completely different amount of weight compared to a scrum half or a winger. So I think it's very important that we use these multipliers against the body weight to just make sure that the work that you're being set in terms of strength standards is relative to your body weight and your size as a player. So let's look at the first movement. The first movement we have here is the back squat. Now, the back squat kind of standard at the moment for beginner players who are new to the game and the younger players out there is 1.2 times your body weight. Now, I think this is a very, very achievable goal, and it's something that I believe a lot of players will be able to achieve relatively quickly once hitting the gym. But I think it's more so important for the back squat and all these exercises is just making sure you have really good form, because being able to reach these standards is one thing, but being able to make sure that you can maintain good form and learn how to actually perform these movements in the correct way to give you the most amount of physical strength and high tier performance on the field is what we're looking for. So yeah, the back squat is 1.2 times body weight, and this is making sure that you've got the barbell loaded on your back. You can squat high bar or low bar, so that's the bar resting on your deltoids or on your traps, depending on what you prefer. And what we really want to make sure is that we're squatting to depth. So if you just imagine that my elbow is my kneecap and my fingers are my hip crease, you want to make sure that as you're coming down into the squat, you're getting at least parallel with your kneecap to your hip crease, or ideally going slightly below parallel, where your kneecap is higher than your hip crease. This is going to allow you to get the full range of motion and get the full benefits out of the squat, as the hardest portion of the movement is when you're deep at the bottom of the hole, ideally past parallel, and you're hitting depth. So really make sure, guys, you're hitting depth on the back squat, and make sure that, you know, you've got good form, you've got a straight bar path, making sure, you know, you're able to create a nice stable base with your feet first and then bracing with your core. If you want to learn more about squatting in terms of rugby and how to get stronger, I've made a full video about back squatting on my channel, so feel free to check that out. And yeah, I give away some of the tips and pointers that help me personally squat 260 kilos, which is the same as 6 plates on the barbell. So if that's something you're interested in, please make sure to check that video. But yeah, moving on to the front squat now. The recommended strength standard for beginner players is 0.8 times your body weight. Now, the front squat is a very different movement compared to the back squat, in my opinion. I think it definitely isolates the quads a lot more compared to the back squat, where, you know, it's a bit more focused on the posterior chain alongside your quads. But the front squat is definitely a good isolator for the quads and really building up your quadricep strength. Now, the same sort of thing we want to keep in mind as we do with the back squat is just making sure, you know, you're hitting depth, making sure, you know, you're getting below the hip crease in terms of relation to your kneecap, and just really making sure that you're maintaining that good form when you perform in the front squat. I definitely say it's a lot harder to learn in terms of how to handle the bar, so I would recommend, you know, really making sure that you're getting the form nailed down and where you're handling the bar as well and where you're resting it. I'd recommend just above the clavicle here, just to, you know, really let the bar sit naturally. And yeah, really start off with some lightweight, get comfortable with the bar loaded on the front of your chest, and go from there. But yeah, the recommended strength standard for beginner players is 0.8 times your body weight. So yeah, this is a really good movement, as I said, to isolate the quads, and I think this is one you've got to practice a lot more compared to the back squat in terms of skill and the way you perform the movement. So a lot of practice will be required for this movement, especially for you guys who are new to it or just starting out in the gym. Moving on to the next movement, we've got the deadlift, and the recommended strength standard for beginner players in terms of the deadlift is 1.5 times your body weight. This, out of all the lifts, I think is very much achievable, just due to the fact that obviously the deadlift is a movement where, you know, you're exerting force into the floor and you're lifting the weight up, compared to the squat where, you know, you're bearing the load with your body and having to perform the movement and generate force. So, you know, there's less kind of stress and strain on the body in terms of your starting position. Make sure that with the deadlift you choose the right bar. You can either do it on a trap bar deadlift, which is a lot easier in my opinion, just due to the fact that there's less range of motion, and, you know, most typically the hex bars or trap deadlift bars are normally come with like a raised handles, so it makes it a lot easier to, you know, get into a better starting position and raise the weight off the floor. But alternatively, you can do the conventional deadlift with a barbell, and both work just as well in terms of the power movement that we're trying to create here. And yeah, just look to practice, make sure you have good form. Try not to round your back a lot, because that's something that I see a lot in, you know, novice lifters and novice rugby players when they go to look to deadlift. Make sure you have good form, and make sure to also keep the barbell, you know, over your mid feet. I see a lot of players, you know, they'll not really pay attention to their starting position, and they'll just, you know, try to pull and yank the weight off the floor. It's really important that, you know, you have a bit of purpose in terms of the way you set up before going for the movement. So yeah, look at on YouTube, there's a bunch of different deadlift tutorials out there that you can see, and yeah, make sure you know the form and understand what it is you're trying to achieve before, you know, looking to deadlift heavy, because we don't want to be causing any injury or excessive strain on the lower back in specific. So yeah, the next movement we've got on the list is pull-ups. Now, pull-ups are a very, very good movement for overall mass in terms of your back strength and your grip strength. You can do a lot of variations, and I think it's a very accessible movement. You know, all you need is a bar. So you'll probably have one of these maybe in your school gym or in your, you know, your club your club gym if your club has a gym. But most often than not, there'll be a bar you can do it on. You know, you can go to the local playground, or you can go to the you know, a lot of outdoor like calisthenics areas have like bars where you can do pull-ups on, so it's a very accessible movement. And yeah, the standard for these is 6 repetitions. Now it's really important that you again doing the full range of motion, going all the way up where your chin is above the bar, and making sure that you go all the way down in these reps. You want to make sure that you're fully locking out your elbows when you're on the way down, and making sure you're not kind of tucking and releasing your chin over the bar. You want it to just be smooth and nice and strong. In terms of pull-ups, if you're not strong enough at the moment to do a single pull-up, you might be a heavier player, or you haven't got a lot of upper body strength in general, I would recommend doing one of two things. You can either do a pull-up with the assistance of a resistance band underneath you to help you pull yourself up, or you can go onto a machine if your gym has it, which is called the assisted pull-up machine, where essentially you put your knees or your feet on this pad, which is connected to a cable stack, and you can change the amount of weight which you are offloading to the machine depending on how strong your upper back is. And yeah, I'd look to progressively overload on that machine, or use the resistance bands first, understand the form, and then gradually build up your upper body strength to the point where you can reach 6 repetitions. And that is a really good standard for beginner players who are looking to get stronger at the pull-up. The next movement, and probably the most popular movement on this list, is the bench press. The bench press has a strength standard for beginner players of 0.8 times your body weight. Now, the bench is something that you see a lot of the professional players doing, in terms of you'll see it on social media, and they're benching a lot of weight. But that didn't just come overnight. They had to build it up over a long period of time. I'm most certain about that. I think the bench is more of a skill, and the more you practice it, the better you get at it. And I'd honestly recommend that you start light and build it up over time. And I've made a complete guide on how to improve your bench press for rugby players on my channel. I'll pop it up on the screen here just for you guys to check that out and understand how you can get yourself up to 140 kilo or 3 plate bench press like I have myself. And yeah, so just build it up, maintain that good form, and I'm sure you'll be able to reach that standard of strength of 0.8 times your body weight in no time. And then the final movement we have on the list is shoulder press. Now, shoulder press is a really good movement for building upper body strength, especially obviously the clues in the name, your shoulders. And it's a very useful lift, I think. If you think about movements such as lifting in the line outs, for example, your shoulders are highly involved in that movement. So if you're a forward or a prop especially, really look to involve this movement into your gym routine already if you're not. And the standard of strength for this movement is 0.7 times your body weight. I think this movement is very hard, and it takes a lot of practice to initially learn it, because there's a lot of factors that revolve around this movement. So firstly, you've got unracking the bar. You want to make sure you've got a comfortable grip, looking at how wide you're holding the bar first, and then obviously unracking the bar. It's very similar to the way you'd unrack a front squat, in the sense of kind of where your hands are in terms of their positioning. And it's also you got to make sure that you walk the bar out cleanly, and then you're in a nice solid position where you can push and press that weight above your head. Make sure that you practice firstly with light weights, and also make sure that you are able to press the weight with a solid foundation. Make sure your feet are nice and flat on the floor, and make sure you're really extended and locking out your elbows and your triceps to help push that weight above your head. Like I said, it's a very functional and useful movement, so I definitely recommend you guys trying it out and seeing how good you are in terms of your strength. And yeah, just like all these other movements, it's a skill. You got to practice. You need to understand the form and make sure you got that nailed down first before looking to go ahead and really load some weight onto the bar. But yeah, that is the 6 movements that I've got for you guys in terms of rugby strength standards, and the expected load you guys should be looking to achieve in terms of the beginner players out there, or younger players, or people who play in school. And yeah, I hope this is giving you guys a good guideline of what you should be trying to aim for if you're new to the game, or if you're new to lifting and you play rugby as well. So I hope you guys have enjoyed this video. I just want to give a quick disclaimer as well. Obviously, I'm not a fitness professional. I'm not a doctor. I'm not a medical professional. So if you are to, take my advice and follow these standards, it is at your own risk. So I just wanted to put that out there so obviously you guys can be aware of it. But also, just make sure you guys are training smart, and make sure you guys aren't pushing your body past its limits, and make sure you don't be an idiot when you're in the gym around the weights. So yeah, with that being said, guys, I just want to thank you for watching this whole video. If you found it useful, please leave a like on the video and make sure to subscribe to the channel as well to be notified when I upload next. And with that being said, guys, I just hope you have a great rest of your day, and thank you.